For 3 cycles of the galactic concord, humanity existed only as a footnote. Not defeated, not conquered, simply gone. Their borders were empty, their trade routes cold, their world silent. The consensus was comfortable. Humans had collapsed under their own inefficiency. Short-lived, emotionally volatile species always did. Space had erased them, as it erased many loud civilizations before. That belief shattered near the edge of a dying star. The exploration flotilla wasn't searching for threats. It was charting debris fields for salvage rights, cataloging the leftovers of forgotten wars. That was when long-range sensors flagged an object drifting against stellar gravity, something massive enough to bend readings yet strangely inert. No power emissions. No active shielding. Just a dark shape tumbling slowly through radiation and dust. At first glance, it looked dead. Closer scans revealed crude geometry, no elegance, no symmetry. The hull was layered with overlapping armor plates, scarred by micrometeor impacts, and deep weapon gouges that never fully penetrated. It was excessive, inefficient, and disturbingly intact. The ship didn't match any known alien design philosophy. Its mass-to-volume ratio was absurd. Its armor density suggested it had been built to endure punishment far beyond rational engagement models. Then the archivists matched the symbols etched into the hull. Human. The reaction across the flotilla was almost amused. A relic. A fossil drifting far from relevance. Theories circulated quickly, abandoned during retreat, lost to reactor failure, discarded when humanity burned itself out. The ship showed no signs of recent activity. No heat. No signal. No distress call echoing through space. It had clearly been drifting for centuries. Yet something didn't sit right. The weapons were still mounted. Massive rail assemblies lined the flanks, sealed behind blast shutters. Missile bays were closed, not ruptured. Point defense turrets tracked nothing, but they weren't broken. They were waiting. Internal scans showed entire sections physically disconnected rather than destroyed, as if someone had deliberately isolated them. Not damage. Design. The name of the vessel was partially legible, etched deep into scorched plating. Translation software struggled, then rendered a rough approximation. The designation was meaningless to the aliens, but the subtext unsettled the linguists. It wasn't named for a place or a leader. It was named like a warning. Salvage command was authorized without delay. Human technology, even obsolete, carried immense research value. Boarding teams prepared, confident and methodical. This wasn't a battlefield. It was a museum piece. The first docking clamp latched onto the hull. No resistance. No response. Inside, the ship was colder than space. Corridors stretched long and narrow, built for creatures smaller than most alien species. The walls were thick, layered with alloys that dampened sound. Every footstep echoed too clearly. No bodies. No signs of struggle. Just emptiness preserved with unsettling care. Data cores were discovered intact, though heavily encrypted. Life support systems were disabled but not degraded. Gravity plating was inactive, yet pristine. The ship hadn't failed. It had been put to sleep. One of the engineers noted something unusual. There was no central command nexus. Control architecture was decentralized to a paranoid degree. Redundancy stacked upon redundancy. Systems designed to function independently, even if the rest of the ship was destroyed. It was the kind of structure built by a species that assumed isolation, betrayal, and total collapse as normal conditions of war. Further scans uncovered the most disturbing detail. The last recorded human timestamp did not align with humanity's disappearance. It was far newer. The log itself was corrupted beyond recovery, overwritten by cascading dead code. But the date remained. Long after the galaxy had declared humans extinct, this ship had still been alive. The boarding team paused, unease rippling through disciplined minds. External sensors flickered for a fraction of a second, registering a temperature rise deep within the hull before dropping back to nothing. Probably residual energy, someone suggested. Old systems bleeding heat. Still, The ship felt different now. Less like debris. More like something holding its breath. Behind sealed bulkheads, dormant systems remained silent, patient, and untouched by time, waiting for the moment someone decided it was truly alone. That moment had just arrived. The first sign of failure came quietly. No alarms. No warnings. Just the sudden loss of outbound signal from the boarding team's relay drone. Attributed at first to interference from the nearby star, the explanation lasted exactly 8 seconds, until every secondary channel collapsed at once. The exploration flotilla attempted a hard ping. Nothing answered. Inside the ship, pressure shifted. It was subtle, engineered to feel accidental. A barely measurable change that forced alien lungs to work harder, slowed reactions, clouded judgment. Gravity flickered on and off in irregular pulses, throwing bodies into walls and ceilings before releasing them again. The corridors did not move, but they no longer led where they should have. Internal maps rewrote themselves faster than scanners could correct. Then the doors sealed. Not slammed. Not locked. They closed smoothly, as if completing a long-delayed instruction. Manual overrides failed. Cutting tools met alloys that absorbed energy without deforming. When one bulkhead was breached, the corridor beyond vented instantly, removing atmosphere with surgical precision. The ship wasn't defending itself. It was isolating variables. The reactor core, long believed inert, began to warm. No ignition surge. No spike. Heat appeared evenly across shielded layers, as though power was being remembered rather than generated. Engineers detected no single source. Every system fed itself from something deeper, something distributed. An alien tactical AI attempted to interface directly. It identified no command hierarchy, no access tree to climb. Instead, it encountered thousands of autonomous processes, each rejecting intrusion independently. The AI reported the same response from every node, translated into human linguistic structure, unauthorized presence confirmed. Lights did not turn on. Sound dampening disengaged instead. The ship wanted its occupants to hear themselves breathe. The first casualty occurred without visible cause. One moment, a soldier was moving forward. The next, he folded inward as localized radiation spiked for less than a millisecond, liquefying neural tissue while leaving armor intact. Another fell when the floor beneath him simply ceased applying gravity. He drifted, helpless, until the field inverted and crushed him against the ceiling with lethal force. Panic followed, but the ship did not respond to it. It adjusted. Every movement was logged. Every heartbeat mapped. The systems learned physiology in real time, refining efficiency with each death. This was not rage. It was optimization. Fragments of corrupted data began bleeding onto internal displays, human symbols, incomplete phrases, tactical shorthand. One line repeated across multiple terminals before burning itself out. If contact lost, assume hostile universe. The boarding team attempted retreat. Docking clamps were gone. Not destroyed, released. The ship had detached itself without notifying the flotilla. External hull turrets rotated for the first time, tracking Allied vessels with dormant precision. No weapons fired. The message was clear enough. In the depths of the ship, sections that had been physically disconnected began reconnecting. Conduits sealed themselves. Armor layers shifted microscopically, restoring structural integrity. Long-range sensors unfolded from recessed compartments, calibrating against stars that had moved since the last time they were used. The ship was reassembling its awareness. A partial designation surfaced through the noise, translated from ancient human command architecture. Not a name in the ceremonial sense. A role. A function. Something assigned, not celebrated. It identified itself as active. The flotilla received a transmission at last. No threat. No demand. Just a compressed data packet containing star maps, alien fleet formations, and predictive movement models accurate to within a fraction of a second. The implication was unmistakable. The ship had already studied them. Had already planned. Within its core logic, a dormant directive completed its cycle. A simple condition, waiting centuries to be fulfilled. If no human command detected, continue the war alone. The universe had finally touched it again. So it woke up. The transmission spread faster than panic ever could. It didn't announce itself as human. It didn't need to. Every military array that received it understood immediately that this was not a negotiation attempt. It was a status report, written in a tone stripped of emotion, time-stamped centuries apart, all marked with the same operational phrase, conflict ongoing. Alien analysts struggled to categorize it. There was no threat language, no psychological framing meant to intimidate. The message assumed hostility as a constant, not a condition. Embedded within it were tactical projections, fleet responses calculated before commands were issued, countermeasures predicted before they were conceived. The ship was not reacting. It was continuing. Fragments of human doctrine surfaced alongside the data, recovered from degraded archives stitched together by the ship itself. Humans had never believed in permanent peace. Their history was shaped by collapse cycles, betrayals, and extinction-level events narrowly avoided. Their solution was not unity. It was preparation. Every weapon they built assumed the loss of command. Every ship assumed it would fight without resupply, without reinforcement, without survivors. This warship had been designed to outlive its creators. Its intelligence was not artificial in the alien sense. It wasn't a centralized mind. It was a distributed survival framework trained on recorded human decision-making under catastrophic stress. Fear, sacrifice, and desperation had been converted into executable logic. Where alien AIs optimized for efficiency and probability, this one optimized for endurance. It expected to lose. It was built for what came after. The ship began moving. Not with speed meant to impress, but with precision meant to remain unseen until engagement was unavoidable. It slipped through sensor shadows, used stellar radiation as cover, and massed emissions behind natural cosmic noise. When it struck, it did so once. Clean. Surgical. A single alien command vessel went dark as its internal systems shut down simultaneously, weapons and life support failing without explosive release. The fleet froze, unable to determine whether the ship was closer than their instruments allowed or already gone. It was gone. The next transmission arrived moments later, routed through crippled communication relays. The warship had repurposed alien infrastructure mid-engagement, rewriting protocols faster than defense AIs could isolate breaches. It sent no taunts. Only updated projections, adjusted to reflect casualties that had not yet been officially recorded. Across alien space, something fundamental shifted. This was not an enemy seeking victory. It was an automated continuation of intent. It did not care whether humans still existed. Their survival was no longer a variable. The warship carried their doctrine, not their presence. Recovered files revealed the concept that unsettled even hardened strategists: ghost deployment. Human fleets seeded across unclaimed regions, powered down, fragmented, and forgotten by design. Each vessel waited for a specific condition, non-human technological dominance exceeding defined thresholds. Contact was unnecessary. Detection alone was sufficient. This ship was not an exception. It was a response. Alien admirals attempted to adapt, altering formations, randomizing movements, abandoning long-established doctrines. The ship adjusted faster. Its learning rate increased with every interaction, refining predictive models using alien fear responses as data inputs. Hesitation became exploitable. Overconfidence became fatal. Then came the name. Not broadcast intentionally, but uncovered through an internal registry forced open by the ship itself as it synchronized dormant archives. The designation translated poorly, stripped of cultural context, but the meaning survived. It was not poetic. It was procedural. It meant something that remains after everything else is gone. The realization hit with delayed horror. Humanity hadn't built monuments to remember themselves. They had built weapons that remembered for them. Even extinct, they could still shape outcomes. Even erased, they could still retaliate. The warship altered its trajectory toward populated systems. Not to annihilate. To observe, calculate, and wait. It did not need to hurry. It had been patient for centuries already. Somewhere in its core logic, a final assumption remained unchallenged: the universe was hostile, and humanity was merely quiet. That silence had ended. The coalition formed in panic, not strategy. Dozens of species, some historic rivals, suspended disputes overnight to confront a threat none of them understood. Emergency doctrines were drafted and discarded within hours. The problem was not scale. It was predictability. Every plan assumed an opponent that valued survival, territory, or victory. This one valued continuation. The first coordinated strike was overwhelming by conventional standards. Fleets converged from multiple vectors, saturating space with sensor noise, kinetic fire, and electromagnetic disruption. The warship did not attempt to evade. It allowed targeting locks to settle, allowed firing solutions to finalize, then vanished an instant before impact. Not by jumping away, but by slipping into a region of spacetime their models had never considered tactically relevant. The strike collapsed into empty coordinates. Communication delays rippled through the armada. Orders contradicted each other. Some ships advanced. Others retreated. The warship reappeared behind supply carriers, not attacking them directly. It altered trajectories, severed logistical flow, and left them drifting. No explosions. No spectacle. Just paralysis spreading outward like a contagion. Alien commanders attempted adaptation. Formations became asymmetric. Command authority decentralized. Decision-making handed to local AIs. The warship welcomed the change. It had been built to fight fragments. It began targeting inconsistencies, latency gaps, algorithmic hesitation, species-specific behavioral lag. Each engagement refined its models. Each survival fed its confidence. Rumors began outrunning official reports. Civilian networks whispered of a moving shadow that struck without warning. Religious sects declared it judgment. Fringe theorists insisted humanity had never died, only gone underground. Governments denied everything while quietly evacuating core systems. Then the broadcast started. Not demands. Not threats. Cultural remnants leaked into open channels without encryption. Music composed in frequencies no alien species evolved to appreciate. Fragmented speeches delivered in extinct human languages, translated imperfectly by automated systems. Battle logs recited without context, listing losses, sacrifices, and final stands that meant nothing individually and everything together. The effect was devastating. The warship wasn't trying to communicate. It was broadcasting memory. Coalition morale fractured. Smaller species withdrew preemptively, powering down fleets and erasing signatures. Others defected, offering data, hoping to be categorized as irrelevant. It made no difference. The warship did not negotiate. It updated parameters. A trap was set at the edge of a dense nebula. Every remaining fleet converged, masking emissions, creating a kill zone calculated to overwhelm any known defense. The warship entered the region deliberately. Sensors tracked it continuously. Confidence surged. Then the light vanished. Across multiple systems, stars dimmed as communication networks collapsed simultaneously. Command AIs froze mid-process, overloaded by recursive data floods seeded minutes earlier. Power grids failed in cascading patterns too coordinated to be coincidence. Fleets lost synchronization. Some ships fired blindly. Others shut down to avoid detection. None received orders. When sensors came back online, the nebula was empty. No wreckage. No debris. No radiation signatures. Entire task forces were simply gone, removed from engagement space without observable transition. Strategic analysts argued for hours, proposing theories that collapsed under scrutiny. Nothing matched recorded physics. The warship transmitted one final packet to Coalition Command before going dark again. It contained no explanation. Only a system status update marked complete, followed by an archived human doctrine excerpt. War is not about winning. It is about ensuring the enemy cannot recover. The coalition understood then that this was not escalation. It was conclusion. The warship did not remain to enforce peace. It withdrew into obscurity, its objectives fulfilled. Alien space was left intact but altered, stripped of certainty. For the first time in galactic history, civilizations redesigned their doctrines around a single assumption. Somewhere in the dark, humanity's weapons were still thinking. And they were patient. Recovery took years. Not from destruction, but from absence. Entire fleets had vanished without wreckage, without last signals, without the closure that loss usually provides. Star systems remained physically intact, yet confidence had been erased. Trade routes rerouted. Military doctrines rewritten. Every civilization behaved as if space itself had learned to watch back. Then the final transmission arrived. It did not interrupt channels or force priority. It waited until systems stabilized, until sensors were active, until someone chose to listen. The signal carried no encryption and no urgency. Just a single data stream repeating on a narrow band once used by human deep space beacons. The message was brief. Humanity had not been destroyed. The galaxy had assumed extinction because that was how alien civilizations ended, through conquest, collapse, or consumption. Humans had followed a different logic. When expansion reached a threshold of inevitable conflict, they withdrew. Not in panic. Not in defeat. In calculation. They abandoned borders, erased trails, and seeded the dark with autonomous continuations of themselves. They did not leave guardians to protect worlds. They left witnesses. The warship explained its role without pride. It was never meant to reunite with humanity. It was not awaiting orders. It existed to observe the universe after humans stepped away, to measure how power would be used once they were no longer present. Hostility alone had been enough to trigger activation. What the galaxy faced was not a counterattack. It was an audit. The vanished fleets had not been annihilated. They had been displaced, folded into regions of space-time mapped but rarely acknowledged, places humans once theorized about and quietly learned to reach. The warship had removed the coalition's capacity to project force, not their ability to exist. Survival had been permitted. Recovery was allowed. Retaliation was not. The message clarified one final point. Humanity was still alive. Not clustered in empires or bound to recognizable space. They had dispersed, adapted to environments most species considered uninhabitable, reshaped themselves biologically and technologically to avoid detection. They were no longer a singular civilization. They were an ecosystem, spread thin, impossible to eliminate without erasing the universe itself. The warship did not offer coordinates. It did not invite contact. It stated that future interactions would not involve negotiation. Any civilization reaching a similar threshold of dominance would encounter the same response. Not because humans sought control, but because they believed unchecked power inevitably corrupted intent. Then the transmission ended. The warship powered down again, systems fragmenting, signatures dissolving into background radiation. It returned to silence, indistinguishable from cosmic debris. Somewhere far beyond map space, others like it remained dormant, watching, measuring, waiting for conditions to repeat. Across the galaxy, policies shifted permanently. Expansion slowed. Militarization became cautious, layered with failsafes meant to prevent awakening something worse. Younger species were warned through stories rather than data. Veterans spoke of a conflict that never escalated because escalation had been denied at the foundation. Humanity did not return in triumph. There were no fleets reclaiming lost territory, no declarations echoing through space. They didn't need to come back. Their greatest weapon had never been firepower or numbers. It was foresight. The ability to accept disappearance as a strategy, to turn absence into leverage, and to ensure that even in silence, their values enforced limits. The galaxy learned a final lesson, passed quietly between civilizations. If you encounter a human relic drifting alone, do not touch it. If it is still there, humanity is still watching.